Matt, thanks for being on the podcast, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're both have something in common. We're both world travelers, and one of the reasons I say I love to travel, I've been to 112 countries now, is because you pick up really cool ideas and just a different way of seeing things that maybe you don't always see wherever you live at home. And part of your story, maybe a little bit of your origin story with Zimride, which later became Lyft, was traveling to my favorite place on the planet, which is Victoria Falls. It sounds like that's where you guys were at. You were in
Oh my
Zimbabwe and
goodness.
Zambezi,
Yes,
but I would love to hear exactly kind of how that story was really the inspiration or the impetus for starting Lyft.
absolutely. So one thing to note is we actually weren't supposed to go to Southern Africa. We were supposed to go to Cuba. And my mom ended up bribing me not to go to Cuba because it was one of those times when you weren't really allowed to go there at all. And I'd found my in. I was going to go through the Jewish community. We're going to do something locally for I'm Jewish, Jewish community. And my mom was like, if you get arrested in Cuba, I can't help you. Like you should go to Southern Africa instead. I'll pay for your ticket. And I don't know why Logan, who was CEO of Lyft for the last X number of years and still chairman of the board, I don't know what incentive he had to follow me to South Africa and Southern Africa, but he was like, sure, I'll do whatever. He's like, I'll change the trip. So my dad was doing a TV show down in Cape Town in South Africa. And so Logan and I went to go visit him. Logan and I have been best friends since middle school. And we were on a camping trip where we were backpacking around Namibia, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and our last stop was Zimbabwe and Victoria Falls. And one of the things that we noticed is no one was driving a car unless every seat was filled. And back then, this is like, I don't even know what year, 2004, 2005, we were still college students. It wasn't cool to start a company yet. It wasn't cool to be an entrepreneur yet. So we were just nerds that built web pages. Like that was what we did. And so Zimride started as another web page. We said, how do we fill empty seats in cars back in the United States? You could go outside right now and look and you'll see so many open seats and people are not contributing gas money. It's wasted efficiency. But in Zimbabwe, it was super efficient. Every seat was filled. There was just enough gasoline in the car to drive you to the airport. When you got in the car to the airport, there was not enough gasoline to drive you to the airport. They had to go to some guy's house, fill it with enough gasoline, and then fill it. And so that was the inspiration. And it's amazing that you've been to Victoria Falls. Have you done the Zambezi River? Have you done the whitewater rafting?
Yeah, it's funny. I've done it twice now. I went
Oh my
back
goodness.
just this last summer, but when I did it the first time, I told everybody because I've done everything you can do. I've ran with the bulls. I've jumped off these giant cliffs, you name it. And I tell people, they say, "What's the most adventurous thing you've ever done?" And I said it was whitewater rafting the Zambezi River in high water. It was insane. Like I got thrown out of the raft twice. You go down, I think it's like 18 rapids that are level 4, level 5 in like a 2-hour span.
Yep.
So it's just incredible. Did you do it at high water as well?
I don't even know what high water is, but it felt sketchy and amazing. And we were on this like tour group that went to the countries I mentioned, and literally someone on our exact tour group, not our Zambezi tour, but like the whole Africa tour, died in the Zambezi River on that thing, literally like 30 days earlier. And we asked the tour guide, and he said, "We do not talk about the past." Okay, so that just confirmed that rumor was true, and everyone bailed on the Zambezi river rafting except Logan and I. I don't know why. We were with a bunch of Dutch friends and a few other people, and no one did it but us. I don't know what was wrong with us.
Oh, it's one of those must-do things for sure. It's funny when I went, the bungee jump off the bridge had just snapped and broke. I don't know if you ever seen that video on YouTube, and I didn't. So I decided not to do it then. This was 2016 or 2015. But when I went back a few months ago, just this last April, we went and did it, and and the ropes were pretty sketchy. Like there was fraying in them and stuff like that. But we had to do it, and we did the bungee jump right there off the river. So.
Amazing. I've not done the Devil's Pool. I didn't know what that was. Now it's like TikTok famous, but I didn't know what that was when I went.
Yeah, it's cool. It's not like as intense as you would think. You're basically pretty safe the whole time, but it's very good Instagram shots. So
Yes,
people
it
people
looks
like to.
beautiful.
Yeah,
That's
well,
amazing.
that's awesome, man. So you named it Zimride after Zimbabwe, then Zimbabwe Ride,
Yep,
essentially,
that is
correct?
correct. Yep, yep.
So how long did you stay at Zimride? I know you didn't stay there. As obviously Logan's still there, your best friend, but like you weren't there that long. What happened next? So you guys found this company that ends up becoming Lyft, this crazy, ginormous, world-changing company. But what was your path? How long were you there, and how'd you decide where to go next?
Yeah, so kind of the the vision was, how do we fill empty seats in cars back at home? And Logan has always been a big transportation geek. Me, I'm just a technology geek. I like building anything. That's fun, and I'm interested in. Logan's very into transportation. Like, he was the only person I knew in Los Angeles that like took the bus for fun. Um, and like as a kid, that was like a no. I think my mom even told me it wasn't safe. Now I would take the bus. I took the bus in San Francisco when I lived there. But as a kid, I was told it wasn't safe by my mom. And Logan's like, oh, no, it's great. Look, I can get from here to here in an hour and a half. I'm like, what? But anyway, Logan loved transportation, love transit. It's always been his jam. And so we started the webpage, and I was sending messages to investors and saying like, hey, who wants to invest? Isn't this like the dream? We're gonna, it was like right after we graduated college. I was like, all right, who wants to give us all the monies? And we couldn't even get responses. It was pretty much, who are you kids? Like, you didn't go to Stanford, you didn't work at Google. And they were like, come back when you're cash flow positive, profitable. I'm like, but look, we have 200 users. Like, isn't that cool? And it's a web page and it's awesome. And no one really thought it was cool. But I remember we had one person who sent us a cold email, and he said, hello, I love what you're doing with Zimride, would love to invest. And we, like, Logan and I looked at each other like, like, what is this guy? Who is this person? Like, this feels like a scam. And so we met him at a public place. It was a Togo's in the Bay Area. And he was an executive at eBay at the time. And it was legit. And Logan and I were like, we don't know why you want to give us money, but sure. And so he did. And so that person, fast forward, Sean Agarwal, is an incredible investor, entrepreneur. He's still on the board of Lyft to this day. He took multiple companies public. He was an investor in June. So that cold email turned out to be super legit. But anyway, for me, my path, I said to Logan, that was the only money we were able to get. I said, hey, Logan, I'm stay involved. I'll be a close advisor and help as much as I can. But I want to go learn from other entrepreneurs before doing something crazy again. And so I did close to the company and went off to set my own path and said, I want to learn how this Silicon Valley thing works before I go and do something crazy again. And so that's when I then spent 3 years at a startup called Dig, 3 years at a startup called Path before starting June.
Wow. And it's really good awareness on your own part to go, hey, I don't think I'm qualified for this other thing quite yet. I want to go learn from some smart people. And you had some really amazing mentors along the way that you got to work with at both Path and Dig, correct?
I was very, very, very lucky. And so at Dig, so I literally pretty much knew no one in San Francisco. I remember one point I got introduced to one of my mentors from college. He introduced me to a friend of his who just became the CEO of Sharper Image, which was like very much struggling at the time. But like for me, I had like a crush on that company.
Yeah, it's like I'd been to that store. I bought stuff at that store.
And I remember I drove into San Francisco. I wasn't living in San Francisco. I drove into San Francisco. I was bumming at my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, who was in law school. And I put on a suit and tie for this interview with the CEO of Sharper Image. I don't think I ever met like a real CEO before. And we sit down at dinner. I'm like really nervous. And he's like, did you wear that suit for me? I'm like, maybe. He's like, what are you doing? Loosen your tie, relax. You don't want to join my company. My company sucks right now. Let's have a bottle of wine. Let's relax. Let's talk about your career and what we can do for you. It was like an amazing meeting. Thank you, Stephen Lightman, for that great meeting. Except it was a very expensive dinner because I loved him so much. I bought a bunch of Sharper Image stock the next day for a bunch for my 21-year-old self, and I lost 100% of it. So
I did that once on a podcast. I bought I interviewed the founder of Traeger Grills. He's actually a good friend here locally in Utah. But I bought like 25 grand worth of stock, and it plummeted like right after. I think an interview cost me like 10 or 15K.
Yep, I can relate with my. It was less money, but that's amazing. But yeah. So kind of after deciding, okay, I need to go learn from other entrepreneurs, I made a list of my top 5 companies that I loved. And there was a startup called Dig that I was obsessed with. And a lot of people don't remember Dig, but think about how cool Reddit is today. Like that's how cool Dig was in 2007. And and we weren't that cool, but I like to think we were. But you know, memories can
You
make
guys had a
things
couple hundred
beautiful.
million users, though. I mean, like you had
Oh, we were
millions
massive.
of
We were
yeah,
massive.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just Rabbit actually built a business that's very successful, so we never did that. But anyway, I was a big fan of Jay Adelson. I was a big fan of Kevin Rose, and I just decided that I was going to stalk them until they gave me a job, and I wasn't going to take no for an answer. And I looked at their jobs page. I wasn't qualified for anything. I had no friends in common, no network in common with them, and I just showed up. I remember it was actually the Macworld 2007. So this is the Steve Jobs introducing the iPhone, Macworld. So I'd graduated in December, so one month out of school, and I saw there was going to be a live dignation that Kevin was going to do. And like Kevin's a celebrity. And so there was like a massive line of like 50 people to shake his hand and talk. I was like, all right, I'm not going to bug Kevin. I'm going to go talk to Jay. And so I go over to Jay and I'm like, hi, I'm a young entrepreneur working on this transportation company. And here's my business card. Would love to talk with you. And he's like, great. Here's my card. Let's talk for an hour. And I was like, oh, the CEO of Dig wants to talk to me for an hour? Like, this is like peak moment in my like professional, personal, everything life. And we ended up connecting. I ended up interviewing, and my job there was a marketing assistant. They paid me $40,000, and I was like, what is wrong with you? Like, why are you paying me? Like, I wouldn't take this for free, but thank you for the 40,000. Like, that's crazy. And spent 3 years there. Was the first one there in the morning, last one to leave. Kind of had 2 jobs there, and ended up leading the Dig It button program. So if you see all the like retweet and like buttons, or I don't know what the X button is today, but the like buttons on every news site, et cetera, we invented that at Dig. So that was my baby, the Dig Publisher program.
Cool. So were you able, it's funny, it's just ironic that like you helped create this thing that became this Lyft, right? Which is this huge company, but you weren't really able to leverage it right away. Or maybe you were able to. It sounds like it was just hustle and grind that got you the next thing and the next thing, though.
But everything interconnected in a weird way. Like just I call it Silicon Valley. I don't even live in Silicon Valley anymore, right? But I just feel like this. I'll call it the tech world. Like everything is incestuous. Lots of friends and overlap. And at the time, I had no network, but kind of everything started to work together. So an example of that was 2007. Also. My old boss from Apple. So I worked at Apple in college. My old boss from Apple, Dave Morin, who later was founder of Path, where I worked. But Dave was my boss at Apple when I was 19 years old. And Dave became one of the first 50 or so employees at Facebook. And Dave invented the Facebook platform, which launched in 2007 at F8. And so at the first ever Facebook developers conference in 2007, I had an in because of Dave. We got Logan in there, who Zimride became one of the first in the world partners for Facebook Connect. So you could connect your Facebook profile to see, okay, if I'm going to carpool with this person, do they seem to have a legit Facebook profile or not? So we were one of the first possible Facebook Connect partners. And then also Kevin and Daniel from Dig were also at this conference, and I was interviewing that same week. So kind of everything. And then Dig was one of the first, Facebook platform Connect partners. So kind of everything connects in a weird way.
Wow, that's really cool, man. Well, sense. What a fun ride to be on for that revolutionary time. It really, world-changing times in Silicon Valley, and with all these different people and characters that were just trying things and using their imaginations and putting it to use to really create actual softwares and companies that could change the world. So you decide then to go a completely different route, and all of a sudden you get into the smart electronic business, smart appliances, and come up with June. What was the path from going where you were at to getting over and starting June?
So I spent 3 years at Dig, and then my old boss from Apple, Dave Morin, was starting a company called Path, which I joined super early, and we were a bunch of ex-Apple and Facebook people trying to take down Facebook with a mobile-first social network.
What was the difference going to be between that one and Facebook?
Kind of everything mobile-first. So like we invented at Path a lot of kind of design paradigms that exist today within the Facebook app. So when or other social apps, when you tap the plus button, like that fan-out animation we invented on Facebook, when you like hold down the like button and it shows like the happy faces. We
Mhm.
invented that. So like kind of a lot of design paradigms that exist in almost every social app today, we invented at
Cool.
Path. And Apple is a big part of our DNA. Facebook was a big part of our DNA. And it was an incredible experience. We had Google tried to buy us for $100 million when we were 10 people in Sean Fanning's apartment. We ended up saying no. It was I negotiated that deal. I had no idea what I was doing. It was completely insane. But
In hindsight, by the way, is that the same Sean Fanning that invented Napster?
yes. Yep.
Oh, okay. So he
Yep.
was the founder. So you're working
Yep.
directly with him.
Yeah, we were the office. The first office was in his apartment, which was
Wow.
amazing. It was the
Wow.
three founders, Dave, Dustin, and Sean. It was an incredible experience.
So you guys turned it down for 100 million. What happened with that company after that?
Yeah, so later it ended up being acquired by, I want to say it was Kakao. It was after I left, so I wasn't involved in the acquisition. But yeah, it was a wild journey with Path. But back to what I was saying is Apple DNA was a big part of Path. That's where I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to meet my co-founder Nikhil. And so Nikhil had worked on the iPhone at Apple. So he was on the patents for panorama, tap to focus, invented a lot of Apple's core camera technology. And I remember his first week at Path, he and I was the VP of business was my ominous title at Path. And he came to me, he's like, "Oh, by the way, I built a business model for Path." I'm like, "We're like a free social network. Like we don't have a business model." And I'm like, "What do you mean? Isn't that my job? Aren't I the business person? What do you mean you built a business model?" He's like, "Oh, look." And then he made this beautiful keynote presentation of some pretty awesome ideas. And it was the type of stuff that I was really into. I wanted to make more money, and we ended up pitching it to the founders. They're like, "No, we need to focus on growth right now." And that was the direction of the board too. But Nikhil and I really enjoyed working together. And so we started spending a lot of time, my house, his house, trying to think, okay, if we were to start a company together, what would that look like? And I remember one time it was starting to get late and my wife came home from work and Nikhil and I were stuffing Cornish game hens with limes. My wife's like, what are you doing? Aren't you supposed to be working on your startup idea, your business idea? And we're like, let us cook. Like we think we might be onto something. And we had this idea of what if we could create the world's first AI appliance company. And this is in 2013. So this is like a little bit crazy. If you start an AI appliance company today, that might feel normal. 2013, it was a little insane. And so we had this very early vision of that there's a kitchen every home, and we believe that it's ripe for automation. And we didn't think the current players in the industry were going to be doing that. And so we said, why not us? We knew nothing about appliances. We're like, okay, how hard could it be? It's what is an oven? An oven is just a metal box with some light bulbs and like a dimmer switch controlled by software, right? And yes, kind of, but how foolish we were. And I remember I said to Nikhil, I said, and so kind of the magic of the June, before I get to what I said to Nikhil and what he said to me part was a lot of the magic of the June is we have a camera on top of the oven. And so say you were cooking a steak, you put steak in the oven. On the touchscreen, we say, "I see a steak. Do you want it medium rare like last time?" And you say yes, and we automate the whole thing. This is a real shipping product. We shipped 3 generations of June ovens. And anyway, but back when we hadn't even left our job yet, it was like, okay. I was like, Nikhil, are we really going to be able to put a camera in an oven and not have it melt and be able to recognize most commonly cooked foods and cook them perfectly? He goes, yeah, sure, no problem. And he's like, are we going to be able to fundraise and be able to hire a team? And I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. How foolish we both were. Both those tasks proved to be so hard and so many hurdles along the way, but somehow we willed it into existence and shipped 3 generations of June ovens.
Wow. And so when you first started out, I mean, you were both creating the product at the same time as you're raising money for the business itself?
I mean, we raised a $7 million seed right out the gate.
Wow.
And that was
Is that just because of who you guys were in your past experience, or was it more about the product?
When we were fundraising for June, it was quite binary. People are like, wow, you're insane. Like this could be the future. I'm in. or wow, you're insane. AI toasters, that's stupid, right? So like it was quite binary, but we were lucky enough that we had people that wanted to take a bet on us early. It was a foundry group out of Boulder that ended up leading the round, the first round into June, the $7 million round. It was Jason Mendelson at the time, and later Brad Feld was on our board. And then first round capital, Lair Ventures, slew of angel investors that were absolutely incredible, including Gary Vaynerchuk,
Oh, wow.
and we had people and just kind of friends that we'd accumulated over the years, and some people that were new that wanted to take a chance on the AI appliance company that would become June. And something kind of crazy is in 2014 on the Gen 1 June oven, we were doing on edge AI with NVIDIA. So we literally had GPUs on the June oven. And back then, I believe it was just us and Tesla in 2014 doing on edge AI with NVIDIA on the latest CUDA stack, which was very, very early. And so we have this 10 years of experience on a stack that's very relevant now, which is pretty exciting and awesome.
That's pretty cool. Wow. So really one of the innovators for the whole AI industry and revolution that came later.
Yeah, we were one of the first shipping products to be doing on-edge AI in a shipping consumer package.
Wow, that's incredible. And so you guys ended up having a giant exit, sold the company, a 9-figure acquisition from Weber. What led up to that? Maybe take us through the process, because there's so much to learn from, this story, Matt. And I just love to kind of hear the things that were most important to you, or the things that the biggest lessons that you learned to be able to get you to that stage.
Yeah, so I'd say it started around our Series B was very hard to raise. So a $20-ish million round. We pulled it off. We were very lucky, very thankful to Lior Susan and Eclipse, to Foundry Group and our other investors like Related out of New York, Matt Higgins, Steve Ross. We were able to pull off that round when we probably shouldn't have, to be honest. Like the sales of the June oven at the time did not necessitate us to continue to exist. Even though it was a credible product, people loved it, and it was too expensive at the time.
But you were shipping product at that time that was working and people
I
were
think,
enjoying it?
We'd ship Gen 1 and maybe Gen 2, or Gen 2 was about to ship. Gen 3 hadn't shipped yet. But anyway, we were able to live. And Nikhil and I looked at each other and we're like, we are never going to be able to fundraise for this business again. We need to figure something out. And not sell the company, figure it out, but we need to figure out a new business model. And so for us, we had built this incredible operating system, user interface based on AOSP, as well as this full localized AI stack, computer vision, object recognition, object counting, and incredible mobile experience. And so we said, okay, we should figure out how we license this to the appliance industry. So how do we work with the Whirlpools of the world? How do we work with the Electroluxes of the world to power their appliances? And so we built this product called Appliance Kit, which was our stack running on someone else's appliances. And so, one of the goals from that was to fundraise. So even though we just had this round come in, when you raise a round, it lasts for 18 months, 24 months. And so I knew that we had 18 months to build a new business model to be able to raise the next round of funding. And so started working, getting to know the industry very well. And it's funny because in the beginning, I said no to every meeting. I didn't want to meet with Breville. I didn't want to meet with Electrolux. Like I just wanted to, crush all of them, right? That was the dream and vision. But then it was like, okay, just kidding. Let's be friends. We're ready to be your friend now. Who wants to partner? And then so started taking all the meetings, meeting with CEOs of many of these companies and pitching them on how to work together. And we're pretty far along. We had a term sheet to work with one company. We had kind of a full negotiated partnership to work with someone on a big oven project. And out of the blue, I get a cold email from Jim Stephen, the CEO of Weber, and he said something along the lines of, Matt, I don't know if you know who I am, but my dad invented the charcoal grill. I helped invent the gas grill, and I love my June oven. I have to meet you immediately. Can I fly out tomorrow? And it seemed like a fake email.
Yeah.
like and I don't remember this, but apparently I screenshotted the email and played it for the whole company at all hands. And I said, this is the part I don't remember. Hey, look, the CEO of Weber thinks we're cool. Apparently, I called it Weber.
Yeah, yeah.
And so the CEO of Weber thinks we're cool. And so Jim flew out, and immediately Nikhil and we just love Jim. Still to this day, I love Jim. One of my favorite people in the world. And he's like, I'm not a money guy, so I don't know how it's gonna work, but we got a partner on something. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? He's like, Byron's gonna call you. I'm like, who's Byron? I'm like Googling that it's a PE firm involved with Weber, and I'm Googling this guy Byron Trott, who's one of the most ridiculous deal makers of all time. And he calls me, and my phone just rings. I see this Chicago number calling me. Matt Van Horn, Byron Trott. I just finished doing the Dr. Pepper Snapple deal, which I Googled. It's like multi-billion-dollar inside deal. Yeah. Now you are my number one priority. I'm like, priority for what? And are you buying us? Are we doing a partnership? I have no idea. He's like, I don't know. What do you want to do? I'm like, why don't we do a partnership? And then what ended up happening was they invested in a $30 million round, our Series C into June, where we partnered with them on multiple different product lines. So Weber products, powered by June. And they led a round of funding. There's an incredible partnership attached to it where we got paid per unit royalty. And what's funny is that Series B round was almost impossible to raise. The Series C, once we had this new business model and this, partnership with Weber, was the easiest round to possibly raise. So anyway, so we ended up working with Weber for 3 years before they ended up acquiring us 3 years later in 2021. And so we got to know each other really well, had a great experience, and
Wow. So did they at that point just kind of fold the company into Weber and just became all just one thing? It was just like a line inside of their company, or does June still run itself separately apart from Weber at this point?
Yeah. So they just invested then, and so we were still working on the June oven business, and then we were partnering with them on new Weber grill products. One of the first products we actually worked on was the Weber Smokefire, which was the pellet grill that Weber came out with, and which is awesome product. So anyway, in the pandemic, they were like, hey, maybe we should just have you here completely and buy the rest of the company. And we're like, okay, what does that mean? And then what's funny is it's 2020, it's COVID times. And so the whole deal, everything happened completely remotely. We still haven't had the closing dinner, I joke, because we literally had no meetings.
I feel like you guys should grill up some meat and have that dinner,
Jim and I have many dinners, but like there's been no like deal type meeting. It was incredible and wonderful, and had a great experience at Weber over the last 3 years.
So you did a lot of things right, obviously, but to be able to take a company just from an idea in your guys' head to, being acquired again by a company like Weber, you did a lot of things right along the way. What advice do you have to the entrepreneur that wants to kind of, that has a good idea, maybe has a good partner like you did as well, but like doesn't really know next steps, or what best advice do you have?
So one of my things that I strongly believe in, and it can be to a fault, is I call it the cockroach approach to entrepreneurship. That if you can live long enough to get lucky, then good things will usually happen if you've built a good product. Mm-hmm. So with June, there were many times that we should have just folded and shut down the company, but we figured out how to live. We have to cut the team. We have to do layoffs. If we have to cancel products and projects, if we have to fundraise from places that were much harder to fundraise from than in earlier rounds, if we had to do strategic partnerships when we just wanted to kill the rest of the appliance industry, right? Like, so there's kind of this cockroach approach to entrepreneurship that we had, that Nikhil and I believed in. Whereas, but there's an opposite argument. It's like, okay, well, maybe we should have just shut it down and done something else. And maybe we had too much ego in the June oven product that we just had to keep it going, even though the June oven business wasn't doing that well, right? And so there's a question there. But for whatever reason, we personally lived long enough to have success and get the great partnership with Weber.
Well, what makes it even more impressive is, I mean, you probably had a pretty good fallback. I'm guessing your buddy Logan would have taken you in at Lyft, or you had all these other, relationships and network that you'd built at your other companies. I'm guessing you had some pretty tempting offers, or at least, thoughts of where you could go if you did, when it was getting hard at June, that you could have gone and done instead.
Yeah, honestly, my brain never went that way. Like I thought about the rest of the appliance industry. I thought, okay, what does it mean if we got acquired by Samsung or by Google and the Nest team? Like I knew Matt Rogers was a June investor, and Tony Fadell we knew well. We never had those conversations, but like those were kind of the thoughts. But it was mostly about finding a home for June where we could add value. It's kind of the only thought that entered my mind. But until it was time, we luckily didn't have to do that. We lived long enough to make it where we made it.
Yeah. So did you stay on then or is that what you're doing now still, or what do you do after you end up selling a business like that and having a big exit?
Yeah. So I spent the last 3 years at Weber. I was a president. Kind of the first year was very focused on June and the June business, and then later spending a lot of time on electric grills, and then obviously Gen AI happened, and got excited and was trying to spend a lot of time on that internally, just from like how we're more efficient and effective as a company versus features. And so that's where I spent the majority of my time. And then
where do you see the AI stuff going now? How's it affecting things? Like how differently would things be today versus when you guys were doing it?
Yeah, I mean, it's magical. It's amazing. It's exciting. Kind of one of the I left Weber in January, but kind of one of the things that I was spending a lot of time on was how to teach the Weber leadership team how to use Gen AI in their workflows and their advice, and Weber board members, and kind of saying like, hey, this is the future. Here's what I believe in, and here's how. And I have this party line that I say to anyone, and it's getting a little old and cliche now, but ever since as soon as OpenAI launched the $20 subscription, I said, hey, if it doesn't change your life, I'll pay you the $20 back for your first month. And I'll say that to any friend or business person. I've only had to pay one person actually, but he's kind of a snarky fraternity brother of mine who just wanted me to prove that I would actually do it. So he probably still pays for GPT, and it probably did change his life.
Where do you see the opportunities coming up over the next several years in these industries, like AI or smart appliances, things like that?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges that we ran into with smart appliances as an industry is there's two major challenges. Is one, lots of things have been promised for a long time in the kitchen space that have not been very good, right? There's been this kind of like set it and forget it marketing from like I don't know when that was, the 80s, that people buy these things and then like disappoint. I remember I was a freshman in college. I was 18 years old. I saw an ad for the Miracle Blade knife, and they're like throwing pineapples in the air, and there's like magic. And I get on the phone. I've never bought anything from TV in my life. I don't know why. I live in a dorm. I don't know why I'm buying knives. And I'm like, okay, I'd like to buy some Miracle Blade knives. Great. And like, by the way, there's a special. If you buy a second one, it's like $1 more. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll buy two. I'll get one for me, one for my mom. Great. And then, oh, well, it's actually like $10 more. You actually get a third set. I'm like, oh, okay. And so I'm just a sucker. I'm buying now 3 sets of Miracle Blades. And then I remember I got them and I threw it up in the air and like it just stuck. It was like a very mediocre knife. And I'm like, how is this allowed on TV? And how am I such a sucker? Right. And I feel like for whatever reason, there's been a lot of like low quality products in the kitchen appliance space over the last.
I would agree with that. It's a lot of things that, you buy it with the hopes of making your life easier, and it just makes it that much harder. People end up going back to what they know.
Totally. And so I think just with June, there was a lot of skepticism. People didn't believe that it was as good as it was. And it was that good, but there was still this skepticism. They looked at the price like, I don't know. And so I think just in general, smart products, there's this skepticism. And, if you look at the connected devices, the IoT industry as a whole, like just a lot of companies just say, look, we added Wi-Fi to the fridge. Like I have a Wi-Fi fridge, I think, but like I maybe connected it once and it didn't add any value to my life. And I don't think I'm connected anymore. Right. And
yeah, it's so like, why do I need to have Wi-Fi on my fridge, I guess, right?
Right. And like there are a lot of great reasons to have Wi-Fi in your fridge, but it needs to be a whole thoughtfully designed experience. And there haven't been that many great experiences so far. for connectivity. So I think it will happen, but there's a consumer skepticism, and then that doesn't allow the companies to invest that much in the products because people aren't willing to pay for it. Like that's something we found at Weber, where so we ideally would put smart products in everything, but it often cost more. So we would have to raise the price of those products, and two people see, okay, this one's $300 more now with Wi-Fi, $300 less. You're like, do I need Wi-Fi on my grill? And like, if you get it, it's awesome. We made a beautiful, wonderful experience on Weber grills with Weber Connect, but it's still a consumer challenge of like, is it really going to be that good? And so,
got it. What I guess just curiously, what are the advantages to having Wi-Fi on like a grill?
So I think a big thing for me when I'm grilling. So got my kid's birthday party tomorrow that I'm cooking for, and I'm going to be doing an al pastor tacos, and I haven't really thought through how I'm going to cook it. I'm going to Costco right after this to go pick up some meat and figure this out. But I'm going to do a low and slow, probably on the pellet grill, and being able to know like, hey, did my flame go out? Right? Just being able to load my app, be like, oh look, it's still 350 degrees. Like it didn't go out. Like it's still going, and I see the internal temperature, or like, oh man, my internal temperature just shot way up. And to be able to be inside instead of being hovering over and just like stabbing it with my meat thermometer all the time. And so I think little things like that can be very helpful and magical for cooking.
Yeah. Well, I mean, being on the forefront of these different technologies and things like that, are you often sitting down and trying to come up with, I mean, I obviously weren't when you were in the thick of it with June, but now that you got a little bit more, free time or whatever, do you sit down and think of new ideas or thoughts or the next thing you'd like to be a part of?
Yeah, still early, not yet, but I could say it probably will not be in the kitchen appliance space. I think everything that I've always done has been very different, from transportation to news to social networks to AI appliances. So I have a feeling my next thing will be something just as crazy as all those other things sound, and not similar at all.
If you were just starting college today, what kind of industries would you want to be studying, or getting out of college? What industry would you probably go into first?
It's a good question. I think there's a lot of value to engineering. I say a lot of like business undergrads reach out to me and I say like, hey, go get a CS minor. Like it will help you just be able to speak the language when you move and want to enter anything that has to do with technology. So little things like that. I think in college, I think getting involved, leadership, like the thing that added the most value to me, and I did one of the top entrepreneurship programs in the country, but I'd say the thing where I learned the most about business was actually in my fraternity, becoming really into recruitment and rush. And so kind of convincing, it was a Jewish fraternity, so convincing awkward, nerdy Jewish people to pay you a bunch of money to be your friend, like is a hard sell. Right. And being able to do that and motivate people in a volunteer position where I'm not getting paid is amazing. And I got such incredible experience doing that, and one of my favorite things that I like to do in company building today is recruiting, getting the most talented people to join my company. And so that was directly transferable. So I'd say getting involved in leadership positions. I was also involved in student government. I ran for student body president. I lost. But little things like that, just getting leadership experience is the most valuable thing that I got.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how some of those things end up playing a role later on. I threw a lot of parties when I was in college, and I did stand-up comedy and, and all these different things. Like when I did my comedy, it prepped me so well to be able to just do public speaking and be able to present and even sell. You have a very quick audience that's going to react to me. You get very quick feedback to whatever is happening, and throwing parties and be able to organize people and, like you said, recruit people to get behind your idea or your thought, or in those cases the party or whatever else. With all of your time doing these different businesses and stuff, I like to ask entrepreneurs like yourself, what are maybe one or two key mistakes that you made and lessons you learned? Because I think a lot of people listening to this, obviously there's a lot to take away of what you guys did right, but I'd love to hear maybe one or two things where you guys made a little mistake and something we could learn from that mistake.
Yeah, I'd say one thing that is, if you've ever thought of firing someone and you didn't, it's probably too late. Right. And that's a really hard one because I'm a big people person, and there are incredible people that I've worked with that just weren't the right fit, and start to come up with excuses like, oh, well, maybe they need more time. Maybe I'm doing a poor job coaching, and probably all these things are true. But
Sure.
I've I've never, I haven't been wrong when this has happened, if that makes sense. And you delay and you make excuses for yourself, and so that's a big one.
Yeah, I learned that the hard way as well. I like how you said that I've never been wrong on that. But it's one of my least favorite things about running a company too, is the firing, because you do care about people and you want the best. And one thing that helps me with that now that I didn't know when I was younger is you're actually not doing them any favors. They're usually pretty miserable in the job if they're not doing a very good job at it. And you actually release them sometimes from this feeling of not knowing how to do a job.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, I appreciate you giving me some time here, Matt. It's been a fun interview. For people that want to connect with you or just kind of follow your journey more, where is the best place where we can send them?
Yeah, at M Van Horn on Twitter is probably the best spot. On X,
okay,
sorry.
Awesome. On X,
X.com.
yeah, same. I think I'll call it Twitter till I die. It's just so used to it. But well, I appreciate it, man. And if somebody wants to grab one of the June grills, can you still get those, or what's the best way to get one of those appliances?
Yeah, so we're not shipping June ovens anymore, but there's a frenzy to get them on Facebook Marketplace and eBay. There's a Facebook owners group where people are sometimes selling them for premiums. And then any product that Weber sells that has smart associated with it is a product we worked on. That's great. So I highly recommend all the smart Weber grills.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, man. I appreciate you.
Of course. It's great chatting.